limitations, like for example the distance we have to keep in the tower or on the approach on the simulators. And then in the slipstream of this centralized base, we have to prepare our staff to move from Maastricht to the Amsterdam region. And imagine that you're living there for, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years. You live in Maastricht or in the very scenic environment around there, and you're basically asked or forced to drive 200 kilometers to the north and settle yourself in the Amsterdam region, where house prices are soaring, where you're far away from family, friends, and you basically have to start a new life if you want to continue the job you've been choosing for lately. So for all of these projects, for all of these programs, we are in desperate need of skilled ATCOs to build on this project portfolio. And like I said, we have a shortage, and we were not able to get up to this needed level of ATCOs very quick. So yeah, we need to change our way of training. That was basically the message for ourselves. And then my colleague Frank Klapp came into place. I think most of you guys know him. And he actually said, we are going to do this completely different than we were used to be. So we set up this program, and we call it Regional Unit Heading 021. 021 stands for the year 2021, so we've working on it for quite a while, and we are not ready yet. And we invented, or we came up with 4 building blocks for this approach. And I will point them out very briefly and then give the word to Hugo. To start with attracting foreign ATCOs. We thought it would be a good idea to attract already skilled ATCOs in our program so that we can get them up to speed quicker than the ab initio trainees we were used to work with. Second, we thought it's a good idea to go locally, so train locally, have simulators in place on Maastricht rather than on Schiphol, and develop this thing we called SimCity. It was kind of a catchy name too, which actually means that we do everything with local staff, local simulators, and well, there where the magic happens at Maastricht airfield. Third, one of Hugo's training concepts, implementing carousel training, which basically means that we're going to combine on-the-job training with simulator training and roulette between groups of students rather than follow like a very structural linear path we've been used to work on in the past. And fourth, this was for us very important. This is not a project or a program of adjusting a couple of things in the simulator, tweak on this process. This is really about change management, and the impact of everything that's happening on Maastricht Aachen Airport is so big that you need a change management approach rather than just some small interventions. And we have to really cooperate with all the people there and attract them into the core of our project to be successful. And with these 4 building blocks, we had this goal of delivering 14 ATCOs within about 2 or 3 years. And like I mentioned before, we had only 1 per year, so we're going to squeeze 14 years or 15 years within just 2 or maybe 3 years. And that's where we are right now.
Yep, thank you, Joep. I fully appreciate to be able to share our story, because the thing is, we worked on this for 2 years, and sometimes it was really hard, and sometimes we were desperate, and so it's really cool to have a podium and share what we experienced. The story begins for me that in May 2020 I came on board. That was 2 months after we had our first lockdowns. And then I also went to Maastricht and also the other airport in Groningen. Yeah, and it felt a little eerie there, because it was empty parking lots. Everything was empty and everybody was standoffish. And there I started to share this vision. So maybe at coaching, the ATCO is not the guru of the trainee, but we have a guru, and that is Frank. Because these are actually, that was my assignment, like go and make that happen. And you see the context, and it's quite challenging. It's a step change for everybody there, but also for LVNL. And in this kind of post-apocalyptic world, we had to start building. And yeah, it was just me driving up there and sharing this vision that we had. Now, I can understand how the first reactions were. This is a story of a whole team. So there's like a lot of people behind us. So there we have these 21 air traffic controllers that we have in. We have people who are in team and culture. We have people who run sims. We have sim pilots. We have project management. We have our course management. So it's definitely a team effort. So I'll start with the first one, and that is our foreign ATCO pool. It's one by one. It's part of the concept. So I don't. Probably you know that that when you have these remote airfields, you have also an ops team, an operational team that is very far, maybe from headquarters, maybe feel a little bit neglected. Maybe there's not a lot of going on. Maybe always during shifts they have time to talk. So there is, people are maybe a little reluctant to change and to outsiders. They don't see many people from headquarters coming over. It's really the reality. So it was very important in this approach that foreign ATCOs, like people who are actually skilled, and nobody has a doubt that they're actually really good air traffic controllers, come in and bring also part of their culture to change this local culture that also has its disadvantages, to create like this multi-national team, the United Nation. So instead of like this monoculture, go into like this United Nations type of atmosphere. And another thing that's really important is also that we need to get everybody in this collaborative mood. And our guru, Frank, he is very good at what we say kicking in doors. So he also shared like, I don't know, care what you're saying, but we're going to do this. So in the change approach is maybe not something that we would want to choose. So gradually we grew into a different approach and took Frank along with us. What was very important, a choice. You can doubt it if that's a good choice, but everybody had to speak Dutch. That was a decision made because of talking to airport services, and okay, it's a decision made. But that gave us a chance to really integrate these people, these foreign people, into the Dutch culture. So we made a program with a renowned Dutch language institute, and we had a local teacher, and we challenged them to reinvent themselves in the Dutch way. So they all have their new Dutch identity. And in the same time, with their Dutch identity, also this team needs to get a new identity. And so it's really about not sticking in your own ways, but trying to build that together. What came up and also was very conflictuous, but very interesting and very enriching, is that these people who actually experience air traffic controllers come there, see the modus operandi of the team and say, hey, this is not 100% ICAO, or should you do that? Which actually challenged these teams as their strength as a safety team. Can we absorb this feedback? So also in that, they were actually an enrichment to the unit. Later I come with results, but yeah, this is what happened. So what is very important is that we have standalone simulators. That was a choice. We do not have all these remote technology that some of you have, and actually we would love to have. Let's state that. But here it was a situation where people from Maastricht had to go to Amsterdam, maybe for a week or a couple of days, and then be trained once in a while. And we wanted to change it, to have the facilities there, to have this idea of always available, just that you can really use it just in time. When you need it, the simulator is there. So it's a standalone simulator, actually an emulator, that's totally fit for the job. People are trained tower and approach, so they do both. And we have both facilities there. What we did, which is for LVNL also a step change, that we had dedicated pilots in that we train to be good pilots. We also had KLM pilots in there. That was nice because of COVID. We could have them. And what we did is actually try to develop them in a way that they are a self-directed team, so that they can choose themselves, that they're really good sparring partners, that they're authorities in their field. So they are able to build exercises now. They also really appreciated by ATCOs. They're supervising it, but the sim pilots are doing it themselves. They also came up with new innovative ideas. For instance, one of them is to have to link the tower and the approach unit to each other, so you can have combination exercises, and they even created special exercises for it. Yeah, and it's really this recipe-based training what we're doing, because we're really able that, if, for instance, if you say, oh, now I want to train the timing for the airplanes that go to Geilenkirchen Airport, that is really, they're really able to provide that, and quickly as well. Like within an hour, 2 hours, they can really adjust exercises, and they really can do this recipe-based training. So there's no delay, and it's really trying to provide this personal learning path for the ATCOs in training. Well, this carousel training concept, you said it's mine. It's actually not, it's Frank's idea, and it was something that he kept telling, and nobody believes. Nobody believes that's actually a good thing. Well, that was at in LVNL premises, but I think that that for this personal learning path, it's actually vital. So the idea that, especially in unit training, that you see that people need to develop certain skills. These learning needs are actually visible. We see that a lot of ATCOs, they are actually panicking because they don't know how people can really achieve these skills. As an example, somebody is on the job training and does the same thing wrong every time. Then they probably will say, yeah, he's just not fit for the job because he cannot do it. And I cannot provide the proper training to give him that specific skill. So it's very easy to reject a person. And right now we can say, oh, is this the learning need? Okay, let's discuss. Let's discuss what is actually the underlier. What is the skill that we're talking about? Is it, do we need some part-based training for it, part-task training for it? Do we need like some combined exercise? Do we need to add some coaching to it? So we are better in analyzing the learning need. We're better in setting a learning goal, and we're also better in the learning intervention. And that, I think, still saves people from not being thrown out of the system. But what it also helps with is that we can speed up training. And one very important part of it is that some people do not get the traffic. We have very slow airfield. Do not get the traffic, but people know, like, okay, this is a good air traffic controller. Let's provide them the proper training in the simulator, and then they can be licensed. So important is that what we did, the challenge from 1 rating per year to 14 ATCOs in 3 years, is that we increased the OJT capacity, because we now put easily 4 people in on-the-job training because they mix it with simulator. Say they have like 2 or 3 shifts per week in the on-the-job training, and then 2 or 3 shifts in the simulator. That was something that was unheard of. And now when you go to Maastricht Airport, you talk to the air traffic controllers, they find it just a normal thing that they would do. So it's an interesting shift in mindset of what training is about and what is actually effective training. Important is that, and actually we're working on that right now, is that also on the job trainers, they really need extra help with identifying the learning needs, with trying to be more in tune with what the trainee needs. So they actually we put a program in place to train them more on that end. The last part of the approach, that was the change approach, which is a very interesting, we call it Klappiaans, which means like Klappien from Frank Klapp. His approach was like, okay, we have a training organization which is quite traditional, and we have a lot of, we have mindsets that think in a certain way, but I want to implement my change. Let's cut ourselves loose and let's understand what we want to do and try to execute it ourselves. So we cut away from this training academy. Well, later on, you will explain how we bring back the learnings to the training academy, but it's like kind of a laboratory that we created for each other, which makes it that we don't have to go through tedious processes of change. We can just do that with the local team. What Frank is good at, I think, is building teams. So getting really dedicated professionals into the team. People with different specialities. For instance, I'm not an ATCO. I don't have a background in it. And I said, okay, then I have to go on the simulator. He said, no, 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 no. You cannot go on the simulator. So to kind of mark the difference, it's like, okay, you have to can understand it. You can challenge people from your specialty, but don't become like us. And so we have a team of different, we have a senior change consultant in, we have, well, I'm like a learning and development consultant. So we have specialties, and all the specialties together create a good team that gives like kind of the weight that we need to pull this task. Yeah, and then the last part, yeah, it's maybe an open door that I'm kicking in, but it's something that is a very important and a very slow process. Is how do you connect local officers? In the background of what you've described, the difficulties of this this context. How can you build trust? How can you slowly get their information in? Yeah, it was already said, like, yeah, listen to your people, listen what they have to say, then they're your best consultants. Well, that's what we try to do, and that's how we also try to see development of our local staff. We had a course manager in Maastricht who is a very young guy, so we could shape him a little bit, the ops team could shape him a little bit, and together he's like now blossoming, blooming. It's really great to see, and he's following a leadership course, and he's really, like, his personal leadership is really to an effect that he can really fight for the people, fight for the trainees, and also becomes an authority in that team. So you can see that these local training officers also need to grow. And that's really part of what we're trying to achieve. What results did we achieve? I don't know how I'm in the time. Do I need to speed up? Or, yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Okay. Yeah, it's 20 minutes and 2 years of experience. So back to that team and culture program. We were in COVID times. We couldn't connect. We couldn't see each other. This team that we're dealing with didn't see each other for about 8 or 10 years. So they weren't in the same room at all. It's just no time, like shortage of staff, COVID. So at one moment, that was a year ago, we had enough. So we raised red flags and we organized a meeting to close the airport for 2 days. And we had a meeting together. And that was actually the start of the success. Just doing it together, seeing eye to eye, saying what you wanted to say, like we say in Dutch, what you have on your liver. They really spit it out. And from that moment, it was very, I think it's a beautiful process where we from both ends saw like, oh, they're not really bad guys. And it was an invitation, meaning that the ops team said, come. So I went there in the summer, sitting in the tower, talking, challenging them. And then there was Max Verstappen's private airplane was landing, and I got binoculars, so it was like this whole experience. But it were the guys who were always a little reluctant for change, but they then also expressed, I'm proud of what we're having. This is our training center. Look at what we're having. We have simulators, and we were able to have individual learning paths. And so this pride and this ownership grew and grew and grew. Well, you can see that I get energized because of it, because this eerie feeling of this airplane, nobody there, this reluctance, and in the same time, these people who have to move. And it's actually something that I empathize with. Together, we still can do something positive. So currently, we already have achieved 5 ratings, despite our COVID challenges, despite these change difficulties. So actually, we're quite proud of it that we have achieved it. And also, what I really love to see is that now also the ops team really believes in it. They're like, yeah, we can do this. And like for the next and the next and the next guy or woman who needs to get licensed, they don't feel that's a big threshold. The first one's like, can we do this? And then that person was licensed and like, okay, maybe we can do the next. And now they're like, yeah, this is just the pace that we're in. So we're projecting now about 6 ratings per year. So we already achieved 2, and then the next one is this month. So we are already then 3 for the first 2 quarters. So we were on that pace. Can we speed up more? I don't know. I don't think it's really really important. It's very important to optimize the flow. Yeah? So the idea is to this the step change we already made, but then we need to optimize and also bring in quality, train better, to also not lose people in the process. So we have a certain success criteria, and now I have to be super honest. We also have this field in the north that I'm not sharing. And the reason I'm not sharing that is because a lot of things are different there. So we do not have instructors in the simulator there, because this team cannot provide us with instructors. And that creates that this whole concept is kind of falling apart. So then also we do not have the ops team on board just yet. We're still working on it, but it doesn't get this traction, it doesn't get this speed, it doesn't get this energy. And that's something that, yeah, again, that is really when I'm telling the story and like, yeah, this is really good. I still think like, yeah, but not good enough yet, because there we also need to make this step change. But that's also what I try to say, is that we are so dependent, and we're so dependent of each other. There's interdependency, and I'm talking about management, but I'm talking about LVNL board. I'm talking also about airfield. I'm talking ops team. It's just such a web of dependencies that you cannot control every bit of it. And we try to, but sometimes, yeah, you just lack very vital resources just because you lack it, and you cannot really change it. And I know that also the board and the management, they're trying to their abilities the best, but sometimes LVNL also has other interests. Yeah, and that's really tough. And an example is the scarcity. As you maybe know, that when people are poor, they're actually, it's like a psychological problem. So when people don't have time, it creates a psychological problem. So you need to create buffers. Buffers in money, buffers in time, because then you don't have the stress and you can ease into it. Well, for instance, we are training people, but then another guy from the ops team is being transferred to another department because it was promised to him already 3 years ago. And then the whole team is like, yeah, now we're having this successful concept, we're training, but now our buffer is gone again. And we still need to work every Sunday and all these kind of things. So what's very important, I think, in this change is psychological level of this team that's really trying their best. But yeah, if you're always in this scarcity, it's actually damaging for your health. Yeah, but this interdependency, the only thing you can do is like come together, work together, say we're working shoulder to shoulder. We're not opposing each other. It's a shoulder to shoulder operation, and show appreciation. It's not always easy. But what I think is a very positive thing is that you need a few pioneers. We went to AZ Alkmaar, a football team. I don't know if you know the team. It's like number 4 or 5 in the Netherlands. But they revolutionized their training system. There are a couple of clubs in Europe where they compare themselves with. And they said, like, the way we build it, a couple of guys who believed in it. So I think it's like the hope that you can have is like some people who have this mindset, this growth mindset of understanding that with hard work, with the right attitude, we can build things instead of this fixed mindset, say you need to be born air traffic controller, or you're never good at it, or it's luck. No, it's just hard work, and you want to build it in your organization, then they can ignite a fire. That's actually also what we proved. We only had one guy, this course manager, young guy who believes in it, and he's now also sharing it with other people. So what I think is that we really established this training culture with a couple of people, boots on the ground, who did the work and can also spread it from there. Yeah, and the last one is something that's 2 years I'm talking about. And we once had an auditing committee. There was I don't know if they were all from DFS, but at least 2 were German, 1 was from Zimbabwe. And they looked at it, and they immediately made the right assessment. And I said, wow, you're sharp. And they're like, yeah, it's so comparable with what we know. And they looked at it and like, yeah, there's going to be 4, 5, 6 years kind of endeavor. Yeah, but at first we were in it like, oh, it's 2 years and then we're done. Well, it's not. So definitely a marathon. Yeah, so of course, we create a flow, and that flow can like predictably produce the right number of people, and you have to maintain that, you have to optimize it, but in order to get there, yeah, you also have this tenacity, this vigor to keep going.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And I started this presentation not with the goal of telling you only a success story with a paved road towards the end, but it's also a story about our struggles and our battle against the system or against some rigid mindsets and whatsoever. And I also pointed out the state of this training organization that we are working for. And for us to start local, to start small, we learned a lot of lessons which we want to implement in our main port. So especially for the area control department, but also for the tower and approach units. And by translating all these lessons to the main port, we slowly try to change also the rest of our training organization. And it may sound easy, but in fact it's quite hard. And I'm very sure that in the next years we're gonna take 2 steps ahead today, and then 1 step back for tomorrow. But we need to keep this change from Maastricht-Aken Airport in mind in order to change a lot of stuff on the main port. We need to change authorizations, roles, responsibilities, because I think it's the only way forward if you want to look at a predictable and reliable training system. So hopefully we can get back to you in about, well, let's say 2 or 3 years to tell you something about the change Schiphol Airport and area control has made, well, by us and a lot of our colleagues working on this project.
Yeah. And one thing though, you can already help us today, because part of it is also that we already been to ENAC, and we had video conferencing with DFS, and we're trying to create new relationships because we think it's very important to learn from each other. And the visits that we did and the talks that we had is really, really enriching. You cannot underestimate how important it is to share these stories and to build with all these insights. So thank you very much for...
Yeah, so see this as an invitation to step by and come visit us, and we'll be happy to share everything we know and would like to learn from you guys as well. So thank you for your understanding.
Thank you.
Are there any questions to Joep and Hugo? Yeah.
Hi, Emmanuel from French DSNA. Thanks for your presentation, and of course, thanks for your work. I have a quick question. When you talked about, you spoke about the interdependency and your relationship with your management at VNL, and what's the emphasis here? Regarding the training speed and the length of the training, or do you emphasize more the success rate? You know, what's your main goal here? And of course, what does your management thinks about it?
It's a very good question. Do you talk about this regional unit management or more board level? What is
The board level.
Board level. Well, I think that the board regards that the training can be unsafe at times, and the fact that we have not every unit training is the same. So it's hard to generalize, but in general, they have sometimes a feeling like, yeah, we're not doing good enough. So why can we not have better success rates? Why can we not provide a more safer training path? But when you dig more deeper into it, sometimes you can also think like, okay, why are we training so long? Sometimes training paths at unit training will take 1.5 years. I know that other organizations say 1.5 years. We have 20 weeks max. So for instance, so I think that very important to like understand that when you analyze it, for us it's more quality focused. So the essence for me is like when you talk about learning efficiency, that is actually quality, because learning efficiency is just learn the right thing. And if somebody is falling out because you're missing a thing, yeah, then you really feel it in your quality that's not efficient at all. So to me, efficiency is quality. And I also think to get the job done, you need this qualitative aspect. And the thing is that yesterday when we were going to Switzerland, I got news that one of the guys in Maastricht, he quits. And then I analyzed, and like we did everything right, but he made a personal decision, which is also possible. But I think that we can also see him in the success rate, but has nothing to do with our quality. So I think to optimize quality is the most important thing. Yeah, and sometimes the board is maybe a little bit quick in their judgment in thinking that it's very easy to train air traffic controllers. And for me, as an outsider coming in and digging into it, I think it's not. It's very technical. It has what I always describe to my colleagues who are also in learning development. It's a high-performance job. It's a high-tech learning environment. It's about people. So that aspect that you also have to find your own ways, create a culture in it, stick to it. Yeah, that's something that we always also want to try to convince the organization a little bit more of.
Thank you.
Good. I think we move the other questions directly to the
Panel?
panel afterwards. Just before we make a short break, quickly to establish the panel, I would like to ask the presenters quickly to come in front. Martin, Laurent, Andreas as well, and Charlotte, obviously. I think you were the... Yeah.
Beautiful.
Big applause for the very nice presentations.
Nice.
Really cool.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We thought a bottle of wine wouldn't be so perfect as you're at the airport, and the Swiss knife as well, maybe not.
Drink it fast.
So,
My children would
chocolate
love
this
it.
time. Thanks a lot. Applause.
Yeah.
You can already pose questions into Slido during the break if you like. We will use these questions then in the panel, and I would like, obviously, you as well to join the panel session, including then Antonio, and if there is still some place as well, Johan, to represent the remote radar simulation, obviously, as well. So then I would say 10 minutes break, and we resume at 3:05. Good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, are we back and ready for the panel discussion? Then let's kick off. During the sessions, I made a couple of small questions, but I hope at least, and I'm sure that from the audience as well, some interesting questions might come up. But one question, if we talked about people actually, and people in the center of all this process, learning, training, coaching, and whatever. And I think when COVID kicked in short time, quite a lot of changes had to be implemented, these decisions taken, innovative ideas on the table, short decision and done. And my question would be actually, how did the instructors have taken these decisions on board? And then maybe more important as well, how the trainees felt in this. Because I remember just at Sky Guide, we had tower training running, ADI, we had an APS rating running, we had ACS rating running. And obviously for the tower guys, it was quite tricky because we had to close the school. But some days later, remote radar simulation was put in place. So for the radar trainees, everything was kind of safe, but question how they felt actually in this. They were completely in this crazy training process, pressure, stress, we heard before in the presentations, and then all of a sudden they had to go home, install a big screen at home, a computer, and then do all the training from home. But the same was for the instructors. And this would be the first question. I would bring the question to you, Antonio, and Hansi, representing the instructors actually, but you were certainly very close to the students as the training delivery chief, so can you give some insights into that?
Sure, thanks Chris, and good question. It was said earlier a couple of times that qualified ATCOs and instructors of course take less well to change than students do. So in a very short answer to a very good question, instructors initially I think were a little bit, there was a certain shared trepidation. It's certainly my experience having traveled globally and working wherever I have that ATCOs necessarily are not the most tech savvy. Suddenly they are not just coming into work and sitting down and giving instruction in a simulator. They actually have to go home, set up whatever they have to set up in order to deliver remotely to a student. This was new to everybody, of course. I think if you go back to January 2020 and you tell the world that we'd be delivering full-on remote ATC courses online from anywhere in the world with an internet connection, you'd think you're crazy. So I think that the instructors started with a certain sense of trepidation, but in the end, we've delivered 8 courses so far, ACS and APS courses remotely. And in the end, the instructors love it. Unit coaches, for example, from Geneva don't have to travel up to Wangen, up to Zurich, in order to train. They sit in their living rooms or wherever they have their domestic home setups, which is great. And the students, I think, at the time, they're pretty much the opposite. At the time, they were just happy to have a job, to be honest. And this is what they expressed. Are our jobs, are we going to be fired? We started hearing what was coming out of some ANSPs in Europe and across the world where training was terminated, where training even at unit level, at very advanced levels, training was terminated. We heard, just a couple of weeks ago, we heard an instructor in an ANSP, I won't say where they had students, he knows students personally, who were 2 weeks away from final check. They were terminated. So our students start hearing this, of course, and completely so also trepidation, but is my future secure? And now towards the end, the last course that was decided, Chris, I don't remember whether it was this end of December, beginning January, that the APS course will be delivered remotely again with the information that we had at hand. And the students, they were like, again, everybody was just a little bit tired of COVID and the antisocial nature thereof, and they just wanted to come back and be in the same room again. But generally, the response has been excellent. Hansi, anything to add there?
No. Thank you, Antonio. From my point of view, it was a big challenge. Obviously, the students were afraid at first. We had many calls in the first week after the lockdown. Everybody was afraid, like, what is going on? How do we continue? What is our plan for Monday? At what time do we start? What's happening? And then for us as instructors, like, we were missing the answers immediately. So for us, a big crisis, a big thing to come up with ideas, to calm them down, to have something in place for Monday, and then to have ideas basically on how we continue, because, well, we all feared that they will lose their jobs, and as well as on our side, what will we do if we don't have students? So it was like a common thing, a great team spirit afterwards, great ideas, great innovation, and made it work, luckily. But yeah, everybody was afraid at first. Turned out well.
We were afraid as well. Any questions from the audience directly to whoever on the panel? You can ask questions to each other, obviously, as well. Otherwise, there is a question in Slido, I see. I don't know, it's anonymous. I just read the question. I have the feeling that there is an elephant in the room while training. Most ANSPs also perform selection. How hard do we encourage people to learn? Question. Any idea? Hugo? You have still the microphone.
Is it on? Thanks. Yeah, actually it's a question back. So this is about what I said about a static mindset and growth mindset. So the question is, do we have selection? And then when you have selected people, what do I do to make them learn? Instead of saying I selected the best people and they will, like, without any effort, be an air traffic controller. So I think it's a question of a training culture where you say, no, we believe in people when they put the effort in, that they will be able to achieve something. And that success is when you put your effort in and you learn and you grow, and then the training organization stimulates it. And the question, we also have a problem at LVNL with it, is that maybe unlike DFS, but then the selection is being mistrusted. Are we selecting the right people? So the selection is giving me, Atco, me, OGTI, a person who I cannot train because he doesn't have the right skills. So there's no sense of a growth mindset in that. And we have some front runners and some pioneers who really have this growth mindset, but it doesn't mean that overall everybody has it. And what I from my organization believe is that it's really good if we like make that corporate culture. Yeah, that the only way looking at success is putting the effort in and training, and believing also in the potential, and that you select on potential, and the potential needs to be developed. I don't know if it's an answer to the question asked on Slido, but this is my thought.
I don't know either, but I think selection has somehow two sides anyway, and I think you touched both of them somehow. One is that we select candidates to follow a training program, which we all know it's long, it's quite high sophisticated, difficult, stressful. But on the other hand, I think things we discuss as well quite often is where the selection stops then, on what process step. Is it done with the selection before starting training, or is the selection done a bit later in the training process somewhere? That's maybe an interesting point as well. What do you think about that? Where should the selection stop? Is it good enough to stop at the end of the selection process before starting the training, or are there some selection steps needed later on as well? Not assessment, selection. Any points from your side or from the podium, from the panel? Andreas, you look like you would like to say something.
Yes, I'm again in my loops, and I think there are many loops that can be closed and should be closed. If you identify something during the training, you will most probably change the the recruitment if you identify a trend. So why not doing it as well while being in the training? The other question I have then is, what about the ADCOs that have been selected 20 years ago and are now working? So do we do the same? Most probably not. We have to accept the change, and we have to have these front runners, and we have to have the acceptance and the trust in the new things. So I bounce back the question, can we or should we really do or continue the selection after the selection?
If I may. I agree with everything said. I think to a certain extent it's a matter of semantics. An issue that we certainly have, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, is the matter of attitude, KSA, knowledge, skills, and attitude. And we all put our best foot forward at any selection, any interview, and the selection, I think the training, the recruitment people, no matter where they are, they only have X number of days, hours, weeks exposure to the selection. I think we see, under stress especially, whether it's theoretical or in the simulator, the real attitude in terms of Doc 9868 in what KSA is. And semantically, that is, in my opinion, part of the selection. Sorry, but you do not possess the right attributes to be a valuable team member. That's part of the selection. That would be better, of course, for cost and or many other reasons, to have identified in day 2 of selection camp somewhere, but it doesn't work that way.
Thanks. I think we have Bernd.
Yeah, Bernd from the DFS, and I think, in my opinion, the selection process has to learn. So we are collecting data since 30 years with all successful or unsuccessful students, and every student is kind of analyzed and checked why and when did the failure process start, where did we make the mistake, and then we put these experience into the selection process. So that's a very good process where we regularly adapt the selection process in minor bits and try to keep the high level of success we have in the DFS.
Thank you, Bernd. Hugo?
Yeah, I want to add this example from this football club, and I think it's just interesting to really think from a different angle. They said, this is our ambition to become Dutch champion. And they said, okay, but if we want to become Dutch champion, we need players. We need so many players, and they need to have these skills. And so they can identify statistically what kind of skills do we need. And from that they said, okay, so we need to get people in. We cannot buy them. We don't have money. So we get youngsters in that have the potential to grow to that level. So the idea is that they bring them in, and that's also a very long, I mean, even way longer than air traffic controllers, the time to raise them to these professional footballers. And the only reason to kick somebody out is that he doesn't take certain steps in his development. So it's not that you say you don't have this right level of this first team yet when you're 14, because it doesn't make sense. And also not when you're 16, and maybe not when you're 18 or 21. Because, we understand that you don't have that level of this first team yet, but we believe in your potential, and we want to see a learning curve there. So we want to see growth, and that can be a very personal growth and about a personal learning path, but we want to see you fulfilling your potential. And when people stop fulfilling their potential, then they say, okay, there's no stretch anymore. We cannot move you to that level because that's too much, because you cannot move here. And they try everything on these particular elements to grow them and in this learning path, in coaching, in top sport mentality, whatever. You can just name it all. But the essence is when you do not grow anymore. And the question is that selection good or not good enough? No, the question is, are you still be able to be trained up? That's actually the question you're asking. We have it's mandatory for us as a training organization to believe in people and to develop their potential. And we always have to inquire, can we still train? Do we still know ways to bring somebody further. It's just a different perspective.
Thank you, Hugo. We have another question from Slido. How far encouraging student team working worked while COVID? Question. Can teamwork among students improve the system? So it seems that this team working worked while COVID, and now how can this improve the continuation of it?
Well, teamwork for sure is important also for trainees, whether it is in a COVID environment or in a virtual environment or in a non-virtual environment. There's always teamwork. It's impossible not to have teamwork, and teamwork always has an impact on the environment they are coming to. We see in the batches that every team has its own complete unique identity that they build up themselves, and they bring that identity towards the units afterwards. So of course, every team has its impact on the system for sure. Whether it's virtual or not, that doesn't make big of a difference. It's more difficult in a virtual setup, but I think the need to feel a team is bigger than the boundary set up by the virtual issues.
Good, thanks. Are there any other questions?
Can I say something more? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's exactly what you say, but we also had at LVNL something super simple, and that is that operational experts all of a sudden could find teams and were answering their emails. They weren't doing that before. So they were using now the most simple collaborative tools to be more in touch with each other. Yeah? And so interesting is that, of course, it is logical that we do teamwork. But maybe now people understand in a better way what it is to do teamwork. And what I've seen is that there's like a culture of more instructor-based training that we maybe are like leaving a little bit. Before it was instructor and trainee, and it's instructor and that's like main thing, and more thinking about more team or more towards flexibility. And we also see it in our training organization with the ambition of the training managers for tower approach and area control, that they really want to grow towards that, they have the ambition to create that culture themselves. And they were not at regional unit, but they believe like, we need that. This is a normal way of collaboration. So I also believe that people got their eyes a little bit opened, as you also described.
Thank you very much. Then I would say thanks to the panelists with an applause. And we will move forward to the demo sessions actually. You can grab coffee as well in this time. So the demo sessions are just around the corner in the next 2 rooms, I think. We have Elsa, the high-performance lady of ENAC. Overrows. We will see this. We can do in parallel. We will have the remote radar simulation and AT-Speak, I think, the radio telephony training. So go and have a look, try it out, experience yourself how the trainees felt. We will be back here at 4 o'clock. Huh? Punctual. Discipline. Huh? around 4 o'clock. Have fun, enjoy, try it out.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the demo sessions, that they were interesting for you, and that you've had some time to think maybe if you've got any further questions or comments that you'd like to make to the presentations or to the demo sessions. If that's not the case, then maybe just briefly, we'll be departing from the arrivals level. The bus will be in front of the arrivals level. The pink bit is the air side. You go across that red line on the floor and you come out and the bus should be right there. Be a very big coach and it should have Sky Guide written somewhere on it, or FABEC. So, and that leaves at 5 o'clock sharp. So, Swiss timing. I will help you with that one. Okay, and I'm going to hand over to Andreas then.
Thank you very much. Misha, I would love to draw like you did, and it's fantastic. It's really nice. I believe I cannot summarize everything and find words for everything you've drawn. It's brilliant. For the ones in the room, I try to guide you in a couple of minutes through what we did today. Unfortunately, it starts with a ball and spikes, the restrictions we had, and we know the traffic is coming back. We heard something about trust, and Martin has told us about how it works with people who should listen. So leaders need to listen. The medal has two sides. We learned from the COVID, from the backside of the medal, some innovations that have been generated or have been invented during that time. The coaching from Charlotte has shown us how severe the impact of COVID was and what it meant for the students and as well for the coaches, how difficult it is to find the coaches. Then we heard about innovations from LVNL and how to break with the rules, or how to make to pave the way for something new, to break with the traditional way of doing things. Something about teamwork and being proud of what you do, and this is as well the basis for new innovations. Finally, the panel discussion led us to a learning path and a discussion about the selection after the selection, which can be continued, I think, and something about still individual learning and the learning path in general. The demo sessions, I would say, speak for themselves. I don't know if we are able to show something more tomorrow then. I would just leave it like this. I think you can say a lot more. Tomorrow we will be able to fill the rest of the drawing. Thank you.
So I think we are at the end of the day one of this seminar. I think we had some small hiccups with the setup. I hope that tomorrow we can start directly with everything working fine. But as I said at the beginning, I really appreciated very much to see people in person again. Quite a lot of you I didn't see for so long time, just virtually, and some new people as well here in this seminar. That's really nice, and I hope that today evening we will find a lot of time as well to have a bit some bilateral discussions and enjoy something nice to eat. If I look outside, the weather did not improve so much, unfortunately, but this is unfortunately not in our hands, so we have to just accept it and live with it. I would like to say thanks to everyone who helped to organize, or who organized the event, actually, people here in the background. And then obviously I would like to thank very much the presenters. In my opinion, brilliant presentations, fully at the point of the topics that are really necessary to be brought on the table now. I think we have a lot of inspirations from today. I'm sure that tomorrow we will get some more inspirations when we look a bit further into innovations as well. And then at the end we have to make it. I think that's then the more difficult part actually, but that's what we have to do. We will come back tomorrow, hopefully, if we survive the evening, and guide you then tomorrow to, as said, to other innovations. And we will see. We will resume the seminar at 9 o'clock sharp here in this room and continue with the program. Is there anything I have forgotten? I think bus is clear. Please be punctual, otherwise you will miss the whole social event. That would be really a shame. And so, having said that, I would like to wish you a great evening, prepare you for the evening. I think some might stay here and just go to the bus. Others might jump quickly into the hotel and come back. And I wish you luck that you will achieve it to be punctually here. Thank you very much.